So my name's John, everybody. I'm calling from Worthing in south of England, near the sea. I'm 52 years old. I found out I was autistic at 45. My preference for language is to say that I was confirmed autistic rather than diagnosed autistic. I also, as a teenager, went through gay conversion therapy, so I'm quite triggered when people try and medicalize what I don't see as a problem, or tell me that I need somebody in a white coat to talk to me about my identity. I'm very protective of the fact I can say, I'm confirmed autistic. So that's my preference in language. I'm here to talk to you for 15 minutes about alexithymia, which is the inability to name your feelings. And it's thought that about 1 in 10 of the general population are alexithymic. That number increases greatly amongst the autistic community. And for the last 3 years, I've been working full-time as an online coach with neurodivergent clients. And just from the 300 hours of client work that I've done, I would say about 40 to 50% of my neurodivergent clients are alexithymic, which I didn't realize until a year into my job. So this PDF is partly made up of mistakes I made so that hopefully you don't repeat them. It is also made up of all of the input from those fantastic clients that I've worked with that have given written enthusiastic consent for me to talk about this. And I have got, if anybody's worried that I'm talking about something that isn't my condition, I have written consent. Also, I actually think after working with people who are alexithymic for 3 years that there is one situation where this does happen to me, which is if I'm experiencing something new. I will not be able to tell you what I think or feel about it or whether I like it or not, but other people will be able to tell me from the look on my face. So it has been a common experience in restaurants that people are wondering why I'm eating a meal that I clearly don't like, but it's news to me, I don't like it. And they say, well, look at your face. But all I'm feeling is the experience that this is new, and that obliterates everything else. So I think I've covered page 1. As well as not being able to name emotions, some people who are alexithymic can name them, but after a lot of processing. So it might take days or weeks to be able to tell you how they were a while back. Right. Oops. So what does it feel like to have alexithymia? And these are actual descriptions that clients have given me. One person said it felt as though their emotions were being held back behind a wall, and they had a very small hole, like a keyhole, that they could look through to try and work out what was on the other side. Somebody described it that their emotions were held back behind a sheet of frosted glass. So they knew they were there, they just couldn't see them clearly. Somebody else said, I'm able to name my feelings if I put a lot of work into it. They said that the thing that helped them was tidying the flat where they lived and doing the washing and drying up by physically organizing things in their physical space that helped them to order their thoughts. And then after a week of intensive tidying where they lived, they could say, oh, last week I was in distress. And they were able to work it out that way. Quite a few of my clients say that they have feelings as body sensations. So they might have rippling up their arms or lava in their stomach. But that means it's a 2-stage process. First of all, they have to find out when they've got a feeling in their body, is this something physiological happening to me? Is it heartburn? Is it indigestion? And then once they've worked out, no, it's not something physical, then they know it's an emotion, then they can start work processing that feeling. Why is it really important if you're with a client and they're talking about not knowing their feelings for you to mention the word alexithymia? It's because actually having a word for what you are removes so much shame and guilt. I've had clients tell me that they're separated from their children. Their children say you're not loving enough, or they're struggling in a romantic relationship, especially approaching a romantic holiday like Valentine's Day, the partner complaining, you're not romantic enough. And then privately in a session, I might be the first person they've ever admitted, I don't know what love is. And being able to tell somebody there's nothing wrong with you, you're alexithymic, you're part of the community, here's this word, you can claim it, and you can find other people like you is really healing. I've seen people's lives transformed as they realize that's what I am. It's also, if you don't know you're alexithymic, so costly just in the most minor interactions with other people. If you think of any small talk conversation, somebody you've not met for a while, the opening question is likely to be, how are you? And for somebody alexithymic, that can be really costly, because they lie and say, I'm fine. But for autistic people, we want to be authentic. Or the next choice is, well, I'll be authentic and tell them I don't know. But most people won't believe you if you say, I don't know how I am, to the question, how are you? So then they repeat it. And a repetition of a question you can't answer can also be really costly. Or do you spend time processing, trying to work out how you are, and then by the time you're ready to go back to the person and tell them on Wednesday how you were on Monday, they don't want to know, because it's not socially acceptable to reply 2 days later with how you were on Monday. I've had clients pushed into burnout just with the question, how are you? Another client realized they had been in therapy for decades and they'd never really felt like they got anything out of it. And they had a copy of their notes. And between 2 of our sessions, they looked through those notes and they had an epiphany that basically every session, whatever problem they came to therapy with, their answer back to them was, how do you feel about that? And they had never been able to answer. So there are some strategies that will help. And I'm a coach rather than a therapist. So my strategies are always very practical and based in the real world rather than internal systems. My coaching training was very much based in the present. So one thing that I'll suggest all of these to clients, I put them between us on the table as ideas. It's up to the client to pick them up and decide if they want to try these in their life, or quite often neurodivergent folk will come up with an adjacent idea that works for them, but they needed your suggestion to spark their solution. So one idea is, if people constantly ask you feeling questions, you can't stop other people from doing that, but in your head, you can swap out the word feeling for thinking. So if somebody is saying to you, how do you feel about that? You can answer the question, how do I think about that? Because alexithymic people will still have thoughts. What you can do, if there's people you're around regularly and you can ask them for an accommodation, ask them to ask you external questions rather than internal ones. So instead of going up to a friend who's alexithymic saying, are you thirsty? Which they may not be able to answer, you can ask them, when did you last have a drink? That's an external question. Or instead of, if you meet somebody and it's the first time, you know, how are you feeling today? You can ask them, what's happened to you recently? External questions are easier to answer than internal ones. With some of my clients, not all of them, but quite a few of my alexithymic clients are always able to tell me if they're safe. And that can be a useful context clue. So say they've got a churning in their stomach and they don't know if that churning means I'm fearful or I'm excited with anticipation. If they can combine that churning with the context clue, I feel safe, therefore it's probably I'm looking forward to this, it's anticipation and excitement, or I don't feel safe, that's probably fear and anxiety. And one way we can test that is I ask people to think of a childhood memory. Do they know in that memory if they felt safe? It might be with your client in a course of a conversation, there are other context clues that they have access to. A fourth idea I have with clients is, if they don't know how they feel about something, what is your body telling you? Your body gives a very different answer to your head. I was in Chicago in January. All my friends kept asking me to go to a new bar that was opening. And every time I checked in with my head kept saying, that is a fantastic idea because it's efficient. All your friends will be there and you can see them in one hit. Then I checked in with my body, because I've learned to do this with clients, and my body was saying, hell no. If a bar is opening, it's going to be too full, too hot, too loud, too noisy, too smoky. You'll be bumped by everybody. You won't be able to get a drink because you're shouting at the bar. You'll be in burnout tomorrow. So asking a client what's their body telling them can get you a very different answer just to what do you think about this in your head? And this is the most recent edition. A client said, I'm always being asked conditional questions by my friends. Would you like to go out for dinner tonight? Would you like to come to my birthday party in the summer? And they could never answer because they don't know how they feel about it now. How can they possibly know how they're going to feel about something in the future? But they realized they could answer it if they flipped the question around to the past. So if somebody says, would you like to come out with me to a bar tonight? You can ask yourself, have I ever enjoyed going to that bar with that friend? If somebody says, would you like to come to my birthday party in the summer? Have I ever enjoyed going to a birthday party? And that can give you some answers rather than make it based on feelings now. Whenever I Google alexithymia, the next thing that comes up is talking about emotions wheels. And I didn't want to show one in the PDF because, first of all, they're copyrighted. And also, I didn't want any particular person who'd created one to feel that I was attacking them. But I have only tried using one once, and the session went so badly, I vowed I wouldn't do this again. The client got really upset because they disagreed with which emotions were placed on the wheel in different places. They found it really confusing that certain feelings and facial expressions were put with certain emotions. And I agreed with them that for me, surprise is anxiety. They, in their head, put courage with fear. So I think an emotions wheel, if it's lightly used, can be brilliant for saying, here are some suggestions of words that you might like access to. But just the graphic itself, putting all those names of feelings next to each other in categories, can be really confusing to somebody who disagrees with the categories. I've also worked with a lot of adult autistic people who are now struggling with emotions because they were taught as children, if you smile when you talk to other people, they will be friendlier towards you. And now they can't stop smiling, even at funerals. So I'm really wary of anything in front of a client that might suggest this is how you're meant to be. I would rather let the client realize there's nothing wrong with them and here's how I'd like the world to be. So I hope you don't mind me saying that. That's not criticizing the whole concept of wheel of emotions. It's just saying, please use them with care and use them lightly. Things that I've learned, and these are the mistakes that I made so that hopefully you don't. I have learned to start every session explicitly letting the client know it is okay to say, I don't know, in response to any question. I promise you, the sessions when I don't say that because I think I've said it too many times, they're bound to remember, or this person looks like they get it and I don't need to say it. I've always regretted not putting that in the space to begin with. It's okay not to know something. And I follow that up with, it's also okay if you realize you have the answer in a few days, you can contact me so that you close that tab in your head. For those people who need processing time to get an answer, please don't think that's going to be extra workload for you. I contract with them. I won't reply to you outside of sessions. This is purely you letting me know so that you've closed the loop. I try as much as possible to encourage asynchronous communication with clients. So if there's going to be breakout rooms, letting people know the topics in advance. If people come up with goals, that they get a written summary afterwards. I also say to clients, if you struggle at the start of a call, in the heat of a moment, with it all being new, to remember the notes that you brought and you want to say out loud, you can email these to me ahead of time. I will read them briefly. You know, I don't do too much work between session. I will definitely read them in that practice of mindfulness before the client joins the call, but it takes the pressure off them right at the start of the call, having that awful question, what did you want to talk about today? And then being in panic that they can't coordinate all of their thoughts. I've got really...
I'm for interrupting 1 minute, John.
Okay, we've got 1 minute left. So just two more things then. Listen carefully for clients saying, I don't know, in response to any feelings or questions, and please investigate further. Don't just leave that and carry on. This is your opportunity to mention, you know, is this something that you often feel like? And the training I did as a coach, they always wanted us to scale everything. Can you scale the problem, scale the solution? How's your energy? But honestly, that first year, all my clients were giving me middle numbers. I'm 3 out of 5, or the problem is 5 out of 10. And a middle number is, I don't want you to quiz me any further. That gets me out of the situation without having to say, I don't know. So I use scaling a lot less, but if I have to use it, I listen out for anybody giving a middle number. And then I say, did you mean that? Or is that just that you don't know? And that's my 15 minutes.